Dean, Joanna, Matt.
Hi.
Hey.
So one of the things I've learned about parenting is that your kids, especially as they get older, well, you have younger kids and they still do this too, but the kids have a way of putting you in your place. Like they notice who you are and they just can call it out. And
So I don't have kids, but I have a dog.
Okay.
And it's not far off.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like,
Pearl the pug.
Pearl's a pug. When we're out in public, I'm like, stop revealing all our secrets. So like sometimes, because I live alone, sometimes I'm like feeding her from the table, and then when we're with other people, she's demanding it. I'm
And they're
like,
like-
don't give away my
They're
secrets.
like, oh,
Yes.
you feed your dog from the
Feed your
table?
dog from now. Everybody's gonna know. Now y'all know.
So this was a couple years ago. I must have been in like not the best mood, which occasionally happens.
Imagine,
You know,
yeah.
I don't know if I was grumpy or whatever, and they were all kind of looking at me, and then eventually one of them said, like, "Dad, you're just being so salty today,"
Oh,
which I didn't know that was like a
That's
phrase, you know.
Yeah.
So I was learning some new vernacular with my kids, but they were really putting me down, and I was like, okay, actually, you know, maybe I need a little attitude adjustment here. But then I started using that word back to them, which it was fine when they said it one way, but as soon as a parent turns back a word on them, it wasn't necessarily, you know, a huge win. There was more eye rolling there. But that salty thing was really funny to me when I'm reading this week's scripture, where Jesus is talking about you are the salt of the earth, and then in the second section, you are the light of the world. So as we continue this conversation on the kingdom ethic for the people of God, as Jesus is giving this really important teaching and the people are soaking it up, we come to this section on being salt and light, which you know, in the tradition of Jesus followers, it's like a pretty popular, well-known thing. I feel like we're going to say that a lot, though. Each episode, we're probably like, "Oh, I love this one," or "Oh man, we talked about," because it's so much a part of our regular learning in the
If
way
you're
of
a
Jesus.
church
If you're a
person.
church person,
Yeah.
For others, it might be like, "What does it mean, the salt of the earth? You're the light of the world." So that's what we're going to talk about today, and then toss it over to our groups. So what do you think? You can start anywhere.
Yeah.
Go for it. Joe, you want to kick us off?
Okay, well, this is me not with an expertise at original language, but I did a study on this years ago, like in university, so long ago. It was like at least 15 years ago.
Way before me.
And this idea of salt, I heard that it can be interpreted as self-awareness. That the
wow.
idea of salt in its original context was one of the expressions that salt could mean in its cultural moment. It was about having an awareness of yourself. And so in that sense, when you think about being the salt of the earth, and if you lose, so it's sort of like, if you lose your self-awareness, how can you become more self-aware again? Like it's a problem if you're not being aware of how you are in the world.
Yeah, interesting.
And so that's just an interesting way to look at the idea of salt in connection to light.
Yeah.
So you're the light, you're how you're representing in the world. But then salt can also be about like, are you aware of how you feel to other people in the world? And if you're not, it could be a major problem, like a
Yeah.
major blind spot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that in connection with the light too, because it's more intuitive. Like if you're looking to see something, yourself in the mirror, or looking to find something, it's really hard to do in the dark. But if you shine the light on it,
Right.
then you can become aware of like, oh, I need to fix my hair, or I've got lettuce in my teeth, or whatever it might be, right? But that idea, I've never heard that before, but I quite like that of like becoming aware of who you are. That piece of self-awareness and understanding yourself and seeing yourself quite literally, and how maybe you are representing yourself and therefore Christ as one of his ambassadors in the world, like in a way that is either helpful or not helpful to others. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, back when I was pastoring one of the Reunion local churches, I did the same thing, and we were going through this, and I was like, so what is salt in the ancient world? Like what? Because he's calling something out there. So here's a few things. Again, a few possibilities.
Yeah.
So it was used as currency. So Roman soldiers
right.
were often paid in salt, which is
That's why you're worth your salt.
Yeah, you're worth your
That's
salt.
an expression.
Yeah. It was used for religious practices. It was used as a preservative, a fertilizer, obviously a flavoring for food, for healing and medicine. Right. So there's all these different, like, really practical things that salt could have been used for. All of them, no matter which way you go, there was a sense of importance and value in it. But then I was like, so what does it mean to like lose its saltiness? That was one of the things I was a little bit confused on. And then in some reading, so I'll toss this out and you can tell me what you think, that if a salt wasn't pure, if it was captured by dehydrating water, sometimes there'd be other impurities in it. And if it was left outside, if it rained, the salt would wash away and you'd only be left with the impurities that were basically useless.
Right.
And how can it be made salty again?
Yeah,
it
can't.
Yeah.
That salt portion of what
the
you had.
NaCl, the sodium chloride, you can't
Yes,
get it.
that's
Try to
right.
reattach those atoms.
I love it. Yeah.
Which is really, because then it's a useless thing. It might as well just be trampled, as
Yeah,
the
it's
passage
useless.
says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's just interesting to, like, what is Jesus when he's calling that out? What are the people thinking in those moments as he's saying you're the salt
Yeah.
of the world?
Well, and both salt and light, it's talking about your usefulness to others.
Yes.
It's in reference to how we interact with the world around us. Of course, like it is very like it. I guess you can light something just for your own use in your home, but the point of it is not just like a single candle for yourself in this image. It's the idea of a city. It's a city full of light. It's like the lighthouse. It's the calling out place rather than just like a solo candle. I don't know, like the little light on your iPhone you're using to find something in the dark.
Which is never really light enough anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like out there trying to find something. Yeah.
That's really good.
I also love that, like building on that, one of the things that kind of stood out is, I love the idea of community, and I am always reminded that, Jesus through his teaching is inviting us not to do this on our own. And like one grain of salt is not going to make something salty, right? Like if you're watching your sodium levels, like you might just have to sprinkle a little bit. But like typically, like let's be real, French fries are good because there's lots of salt on them, right? And when things are salty, we're attracted to them and we want more of them. It enhances flavor. It makes the experience of eating or whatever that much better, right? You think of oceans, where I'm from on the West Coast, the saltier it is, the easier it is to swim in there because there's more buoyancy, there's more. So salt en masse enhances the experience of whatever it is, especially food, but other things as well. And same with light. I mean, and Jesus says, you are the light of the world. And we often hear and we read that as Jesus is just always speaking just to me personally. But it's a collective, because right away he says a town, right? A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. So it's a community. And one light, as you said, is good and helpful, but really lights are the thing that grab us, right? One little string of patio lights in the backyard is nice, but like the zigzag across is actually way more beautiful. And so I think there's that invitation right in here too, that it is the collective you, the collective us, that is the salt of the world. And that together, living in the way of these Beatitudes, which we looked at in the last episode, like that is what enhances the experience of life. In the way that salt makes things tastier and light shines and helps us see and live and And
he's speaking to this whole crowd, like we've talked about that already. Like these people are all assembled, and he's calling this out of them. And so it makes me wonder a little bit if they were, in our last episode, people who are kind of down and out a little bit in some ways, if that's where they found themselves, as he's talking about the blessing and the favor of God, they may also then find it empowering as Jesus is calling them out as like, you are important in this. You're the salt, you're the light, you have a part to play, a role in this. It makes me wonder how that might have felt like, oh, I can see myself in this thing that he's helping us understand. There's like, I have a part to play in this. They could see themselves being like encouraged in the moment, which is interesting. Again, not a solo thing, but like we together, we can do this together, which is kind of cool to me.
Yeah. Well, and just going into a context of salt being so valuable you could be paid with it. If someone gave me a bag of salt for my job, I'd be pretty mad. But then on the light side, like we are surrounded by electric light. It's very easy, it's very cheap, and like even just in glancing around the room, there's a chandelier behind us with probably 12 different lights on one light. But this is a context of like there weren't street lights. There wasn't a neon sign calling you to get to the local corner store. Like,
Right.
there's not lights in your car. You know, everything you had to kind of carry with you, bring with you, turn on with intention. It was expensive to light, fuel. And so, in a context of like a nighttime in a city before electricity was very dark.
Yeah.
And I think then also kind of scary.
Right.
If you couldn't see what was there, what's around the corner.
Sure.
Crime and creepy rats everywhere.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
don't know. Like
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know, there's just stuff you can't see and don't know about. And then one light would draw every eye around it.
Right.
Or that idea of just even like you leave the light on for maybe your kids to come home at night, or you leave the light on for the traveler who's coming to your home or to your, you know, your establishment. This idea of like in a darkness, this is like an invitation to come closer.
Yeah,
to
well,
draw
here we
near.
are.
Here we are, like welcome.
Oh yeah, I love that.
In a very, again, I think because we see lights so many places they don't feel as welcoming, but in a dark space, a light is very hospitable.
Totally. There was no such
Yeah.
thing as light pollution back
Right.
then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like now you can't really see the stars. Well, that's because we're in the city.
Yeah.
You drive an hour, 2 hours, and it's like then you can see them because there's not all of this light that's like
Right.
drowning out the stars. Whereas here, yeah, it's like the opposite. All you would have is like the night sky, and then when you would see community lights, it'd be this place of welcome, this refuge.
And on a cloudy night, you don't even have that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you had no moon or stars to guide you. It was
Yeah.
just a tiny lamp.
Yeah. We had the power go out a little while ago, and it stayed out for an extended period of time. And you forget how one candle can kind of light up some space, but you put them all over the place. And it reminds you of these small little things all together create a really great light. Because we're so used to having whatever we need in terms of light
Yeah.
whenever we want, or salt in terms of flavoring. But little bits can go a long. If you've ever had bland food for a long time and then you all of a sudden get flavor, you're like, where has this?
A little bit goes a long way.
Yeah. And so it makes me wonder about people living in the way of Jesus, how they can bring this sense of light and flavor with them in who they are and the people they're in life with, in relationship with.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, again, I ask of myself first, what would people in my life say of me? I
Yeah.
think of, before we hit record, I was talking a little bit, I have a dog, this small dog, and then because I don't have a backyard, I live in an apartment style housing, I have to go out into the neighborhood. And so I just know probably at least 100 neighbors because of this dog. And I maybe don't know their name, but I know their dog's name.
Yeah.
And I know most of their names now. I'm trying. But the point is, what would they say of me? When I meet them, have I added flavor, interest, and delight to their day? Delight. Have I
Yeah.
added
Yeah.
something bright and hopeful to that interaction, or am I like a dark, gloomy cloud storming down the street? You know, when I interact with my neighbors.
Here comes Joanna.
There comes Joanna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's such an important thing to notice and be reflective of in our own lives and in the scripture too. Like in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
the point.
Yeah, it's not about like works, you know, the deeds that you do are, you know, going to merit you some special place in heaven or something along those lines, but it's like living in such a way that others would take notice and be like, oh yeah, right on. Like, or, you know, Joanna wasn't there today because she was filming, you know, or whatever, and we missed her. Like the absence is noted. And I think that when we do things and when we care and we are, like we had said, salt and light is not just like a self thing, it's for others, right? That when we live that way with intention and purpose to show people the love of God through the smallest interaction or the, you know, just noticing someone and being
Yeah.
kind to them, like that can make a big difference. And ultimately for us can be an act of worship and wanting to glorify God, and that they would see that and be like, well, that person is different. They're friendly, but there's something else there too,
Yeah.
right? It's like that, just being the salt and the light that enhances people's experience of life.
Yeah, and in a culture that often wants to get more eyeballs on ourselves, you know, you shine the light so that people will notice you or whatever. This is a stark contrast in the teaching of Jesus. The point of doing these things and flavoring and bringing light is to help point people to and introduce them to
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
God.
Well, there's this like a well-known preacher who says, if the light that shines on you, like the spotlight, you know, the eyeballs staring at you, if the light that shines on you is bigger or more powerful to you than the light coming from within out of you, like it's gonna kill you. As in, like, if it's all about you being in the spotlight and the lights from outside coming at you, and you're
Right.
obsessed with that kind of attention, it's gonna destroy your life. But if it's about the light from within, the God light coming out of you, actually will bless many people around you.
Yeah.
That's really good.
The light gives light to everyone in the house in the same way. Let your light shine before others. It's just that. It's
Yeah.
so brilliant. And that's the thing, it fills us up. Like the inverse we would think would be true. Oh, the more it's on us, the better we'll feel. But it's actually, the more you shine it towards others, the more you give, the more you'll receive.
That's it.
Imagine that.
Awesome. Let's hold it there. Over to you with your dinner churches. Enjoy the conversation, and we will pick this next section of the Sermon on the Mount up in the next episode. All right. Peace.